Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Charlie Nicklin. I'm Chief Executive of IAgrE, and I'd like to thank you all for joining our first presentation of 2025. I'd like to welcome Erik Tomlin for our presentation today. Erik is the EDI Platform Manager at the Royal Academy of Engineering, and he's going to be talking about the importance of inclusivity and how it can help unlock innovation in organisations. Erik will also take us through how the Royal Academy is supporting organisations and businesses with the various programmes that they run. As usual with our lectures, everybody will be muted, and if you'd like to ask questions, then please pop them in the chat at the bottom of your screen. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll unmute you so you can ask in person. Okay, I'll now hand over to Erik.
Thanks, Charlie. Hi, everyone. My name's Erik. I'm going to share my screen now. All right. So what is the secret to unlocking innovation in your organization? This workshop is hopefully going to show you how feelings of inclusion and belonging matter for innovation. We're going to discuss some challenges in trying to develop a good culture and some practical steps that everyone can take to help create an inclusive culture in their organization. I'm also going to go over how some of the support that the Royal Academy of Engineering is doing with programs like GEEP, Inclusive Leadership Program, and Culture Plus, and how to get started with each of those. So firstly, let me give you a bit of background about the Royal Academy of Engineering. So our aim is to harness the power of engineering to build a sustainable society and an inclusive economy that works for everyone. So we have three pillars of actions by which we are working to achieve this. Firstly, we'll grow talent by training, supporting, mentoring, and funding the most talented and creative researchers, innovators, and leaders from across the engineering profession, with an aim to help over 7,500 professionals to enhance their leadership skills. Then we'll drive innovation by investing in some of the UK's most creative and exciting engineering ideas and businesses. So in partnership with industry, entrepreneurs, and academia, we're on course to support the growth of more than 500 companies through our enterprise hub. This support comes through not only millions of pounds of funding, but also lots of training, upskilling, and connecting with our fellows. And then finally, we'll influence policy through the National Engineering Policy Centre, so providing independent and expert guidance to government, drawing on the expertise and creativity of over 450,000 engineers, mainly through partnerships with PEIs and other engineering organizations. So my name is Erik Tomlin. I'm the EDI Platform Manager at the Royal Academy. So I have a really strange background that had me started off as a music teacher in America. Then I moved into music business, moving to New York and starting to work for MTV in music licensing. That brought me to London, where I became an employee resource group leader for the London office at MTV, doing more and more diversity inclusion work on the side of my desk. So then I realized that this was sparking a lot more of my interests and excitement than, say, licensing music for, the latest episode of Geordie Shore. So I left MTV and started working for a small diversity inclusion consulting firm before landing this role at the Academy. I think this is a really great role because we are working with companies that are doing real good in the world, and I can draw on my experience of working in a really toxic and non-inclusive environment to help those create more innovative and stronger companies. So when you leave here today, I want you to understand the importance of inclusive cultures and the benefits they bring to your organization. I want you to learn a couple of strategies to create and maintain an inclusive culture. I want you to be inspired to seek out opportunities to address the lack of diversity by promoting inclusion. And then finally, I want you to understand some of the programs that we have here at the Academy that support inclusion in engineering. So first, let's talk about the importance of inclusive cultures. So the benefits of EDI have been really widely documented. The Academy's latest research report identified 4 ways in particular in which these benefits are realized. Firstly, there's people. So inclusive teams create better employee experiences. I'm sure you can all agree that when you're working with people that respect your opinions and ask for your advice, you're having a much nicer time. Products and services. So diverse teams innovate and make your solutions more inclusive. This was something really important to smaller companies as they want to make sure that they are, keeping up with the trends of their customer journey. Thirdly, partners. Engagement with EDI can attract investment and enhance your reputation. Investors know that inclusive teams are innovative teams, so they're more likely to back companies that are prioritizing EDI and inclusion. And then finally, processes. Addressing EDI can mitigate legal, reputational, and safety risks. So considering the experiences of your staff and your customers will ensure that you're not enacting solutions or processes that inadvertently harm people. If you're interested in reading more, here's a QR code where you can access the latest report by the Academy, which is called the EDI Engine. Cool. So what challenge are we trying to solve? So when talking about diversity and inclusion, we know that there are benefits, but in the UK, we have very specific challenges in terms of diversity, in terms of the diversity part of EDI. So I have some stats to show you the current state of the UK engineering workforce in the first column compared with the overall UK workforce, or the proportion in other industries in the second column. So you can see gender. Women make up only 15.7% of UK engineering workforce as compared to 47.7% of the overall workforce. And in some sectors, it's even worse, with women accounting for 4.7% and 4.2% in engineering roles in construction and mining, respectively. So from 2010 to 2021, this only increased 6 percentage points, meaning that if we continue at this rate of progress, it would take over 100 years to have equal numbers of men and women in engineering, showing a need for positive action. So ethnicity within engineering, only 11.4% of employees are from minority ethnic groups. This is 2 percentage points lower than the proportion across other industries and 16.8 percentage points lower than the UK working age population at 28.2%. So certain groups are especially underrepresented, but they're only 4.9% and 3.5% Black employees in manufacturing and construction, respectively, compared to 16.2% in finance and 47.2% in public administration, education, and health. So this is a lot of numbers, a lot of things, but you can see that there's a problem here. We're not really having diversity and equal outcomes here. So that means that action is necessary. While recruitment is one of the ways to help solve this problem, we also need to focus on what we can do on a day-to-day basis to create inclusive cultures where different people feel welcome and can thrive. Even if you're not in recruitment, there are things that you can do in your day-to-day to create an inclusive environment, which will not only help attract a more diverse workforce, but also retain them. In fact, a lack of action can actually worsen these disparities. So consider this metaphor, the safety in the workplace metaphor. I kind of want to arm you with some arguments here for why you need to take action. So imagine you're managing a construction site and safety is a priority. So you ask your workers if they're following safety protocols, and they all say, yes, of course, we wear helmets and safety vests. They believe that by wearing the basic protective gear, they're doing all they can to ensure safety. However, when you look deeper, you may notice things are going wrong. So some workers aren't checking equipment before the use, others aren't following proper safety procedures when operating heavy machinery, and there's no regular training on new safety measures. Even though no one is intentionally causing harm, the site then becomes full of hidden risks. So by not actively enforcing and updating safety measures, people assume they're doing enough when in fact they're allowing dangerous practices to persist. So the key takeaway here is just wearing the helmet and safety vest doesn't make the site safe. So to genuinely prioritize safety, you need to consistently review practices, address weak points, train employees on proper safety techniques, and check in regularly. If you're not actively doing these things, you could be contributing to an unsafe environment, even though you think you're doing the basics, doing enough by just doing the basics. So inclusion works the same way. Saying that you have diversity statements or that you treat everyone equally is like wearing a helmet and a vest. It's necessary, but far from sufficient. True inclusion means actively checking for biases, challenging existing structures that may unintentionally exclude, providing ongoing training, and consistently reviewing policies to ensure fairness. So if these steps aren't in place, even the best intentions may allow exclusionary practices to go unnoticed, just like safety issues on the construction site. Or if that metaphor doesn't resonate with you, I've got another one. So, defensive driving. Think about how we approach road safety. So most drivers believe that they're good drivers because they follow the basic traffic rules. They stop at red lights, they stay within the speed limits, and they use their turn signals. However, just following traffic laws doesn't make you a safe driver. There's a difference between simply not breaking the rules and practicing defensive driving, where you actively look out for potential hazards, anticipate other drivers' mistakes, and adjust your behavior to prevent accidents. So a driver who only follows the rules might still cause accidents by not paying attention to changes in traffic, road conditions, or aggressive drivers. Without defensive driving practices, they are passively increasing the risk of accidents, even if they technically follow the rules. So it's not enough to just follow traffic laws. True safety comes from being proactive, anticipating potential risks, and taking action to avoid problems before they occur. Inclusion is just like defensive driving. It's not enough to just follow basic rules and claim that you're not biased. You have to be really proactive, looking for areas where biases might arise, anticipating how current practices may disadvantage certain groups, and adjusting your policies to prevent exclusion before it happens. So if you're not taking active steps toward inclusion, like defensive driving, then you're allowing these risks to accumulate and contribute to the problem without even realizing it. So that being said, I want to give you 4 ways to start thinking about inclusion in your day-to-day. So first one is inclusive communication. When we consider what makes a culture inclusive or not, one key way that this is evidenced is in how people communicate. So as a baseline, an inclusive culture is one where people don't use disrespectful, inappropriate, or unkind communication. Language is constantly evolving, and part of committing to creating an inclusive, innovative culture is engaging with continual learning and curiosity about these changes and adapting your usage accordingly. It's one where everyone, not just certain team members, is invited to express their thoughts and opinions without being interrupted or spoken over. So what we'd like you to focus are on the things that you can do in your day-to-day working to demonstrate this strategy. It's not just about making sure that you use non-gendered language when you walk into a room. That should be seen as a bare minimum. But it's also about making sure that you're taking the time to understand inclusive communication in a holistic way. So we split the basics of inclusive communication into 4 different behaviors. The first is I use inclusive and respectful language. This is pretty basic, and hopefully we're all doing this. It's about thinking about the kinds of things that you're saying and who you're saying it to, and making sure that you're being inclusive and respectful of all the people that you're working with, and even all the people that you're not working with. So the second one is I speak up and object to any unkind or unfair communication I witness. This one can sometimes be a bit harder. Sometimes you'll hear something and think it's not worth it to say something. I'm just going to let that go. But let me tell you, it's always worth it to say something. Even if that person gets defensive and says it's just a joke, they will think twice before saying an offensive thing again later. It's also good to sort of own the correction and not speak on behalf of someone else. So if someone were to say something offensive to someone else, it's not always best to say, hey, I think, Sandra might find that comment offensive. Instead, what you should say is, you know what, it makes me uncomfortable when you say things like that. Your friend is more likely to listen to you and respect your feelings than to sort of, change their behavior because you said someone else might be offended. And also, if it is true, like if, you're friends with Sandra and she might find that comment offensive, it would make you uncomfortable to hear that. So you're not saying anything wrong. You're just saying this is the kind of behavior and language that we want in this company. I also should point out that it takes 25% of an organization to shift a culture. And so what that means is, if you're in a group of 4 people and someone says something out of line and one of those people, calls that comment out, the other 3 people that are there hear that and understand, oh, this is not how we behave in this environment. So it's really always worth it to speak up and say something when you have the opportunity. So the next one is I ask open questions to understand other people's point of view. This is a really great one that can be really hard to put into practice sometimes. So when you're confronted with suggestion that you disagree with, you can learn and teach by taking the time to understand how the other person got to that point of view. So rather than just dismissing their comment as something that's not going to work, really sort of dive into how they got there with their thinking. And that might really take you on a journey to understanding somebody else's point of view. And, you might still disagree with them at the end, but at least you have a different perspective. And then the fourth one is I let other people speak without interrupting them. So interrupting people doesn't mean just not speaking over them. It means it can take the form of, rushing through a meeting and giving everyone in that meeting the feeling that you're in a hurry, that you shouldn't speak up or ask any questions because you want to get out of there. So we should allow you to, conduct this meeting as quickly as possible so that you can get out of there. It means, ending a meeting early and to give people time back without going around to make sure that everyone understands sort of the next steps or has the same understanding of the topic as you want them to have. So these are 4 things and under the guise of inclusive communication 4 behaviors that you can put into practice sort of every day. So what I want you to do is sort of think of some instances where you can create a little rule for yourself to put these 4 behaviors into more regular practice. And I'm hoping, I actually didn't discuss this ahead of time, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to send you these slides afterwards so that you can sort of keep them maybe on the side of your desk and be reminded to do these 4 strategies to support inclusive communication, these 4 behaviors to support inclusive communication. So the next strategy after inclusive communication that I want to talk about is feedback. So you might think a culture where everyone agrees is a positive one, but in fact, a lack of conflict and constructive feedback could be a really bad sign. Being able to respectfully challenge is a core part of being fully included and heard within the workplace. Everyone should feel able to offer their feedback, and everyone's feedback should be considered. This is a safe challenge. This safe challenge is also an essential element of innovation. So very little exciting things will happen if people are afraid to disagree. And the capacity to safely disagree has to be available to everyone, not just with those with the power. So you have to be sure that you're putting structures into place to make sure that even the people at sort of the lower end of the totem pole feel empowered to speak up when they don't agree with something or when they see something that's going wrong. So we split the basics of valuing feedback into 4 different behaviors. The first is I respond with interests to views different from my own. This is sort of similar to the asking open questions one from the previous slide, but it just means that if somebody has a different opinion or a different view, again, you just don't dismiss it. You tease out a little bit more information about that. You become interested, even if it's not something that you disagree with, but something that you're just not interested in. Open your mind. Try to become a little bit more interested in the lives of other people around you, because that's a really good way to start supporting a feedback culture. Secondly, I give specific feedback. This seems really basic, but it is sometimes really difficult to put into practice. So make sure that there's an action that can be taken from your feedback. It's not just enough to say, I thought you did really great on that presentation. What you should say is, I like how you used your personal experiences to underpin, the message of that presentation. Or I like how you divided, everything up into small actionable chunks. Just saying you did a good job on this presentation sometimes isn't really helpful to the person that is learning that is hearing that feedback, because they want to know what about it they did well and what they can do better. It also goes the same way for negative feedback. Just say, like, when you're giving negative feedback, or don't say something like, I don't like your attitude. That's a really coded bit of feedback. But say, I don't like it when you interrupt me when I'm trying to give a presentation, or I don't like the way that you ask questions while I'm in the middle of explaining something. So people need an action that they can take away from your feedback so that they can make improvements. Also, I ask for feedback. Again, this opens those doors to communication and models good behavior. Oftentimes we will not ask for feedback. So giving feedback is really great, but you also need to ask for it. And this sort of encourages that sort of two-way dialogue, and makes, especially when you're in a position of power and you're asking for feedback from people that are, reporting into you, it makes people understand that they can speak up and they can say things that are of concern to them. And then finally, I actively seek out opportunities to learn. So when we go through life assuming we don't know things, we learn. So when we assume we're capable of change, we change. That's what it means to have sort of a growth mindset. It can make things more enjoyable. So next time you're having a difficult meeting coming up, or a big change is announced that you're asked to take on some new work, just assume that you can do it. That doesn't mean that you should have to put up with bad situations, but it does mean that you'll start to see the opportunities and assume that you have the potential to do the work. You'll learn the new skills and you'll change your behavior. So again, take a look at these four behaviors and think about instances where you can, again, create a little rule for yourself and put these four behaviors into more regular practice. And that will sort of unlock creating a feedback culture in the workplace that you're working in. So if you can say, actually, we should have a session in our team meeting where we ask for specific feedback from everyone. That would be a really great way to make sure that you're putting that into practice and having a really regular positive effect on your culture. Cool. So next strategy is considering diverse perspectives. So you might, without even realizing it, be consistently favoring some voices over others. So take a moment to think about the 10 people you'd go to with a difficult problem. Do you notice any patterns within that 10? Are many of them similar to you? How likely is it that you're going to get diverse perspective and experiences from this group, leading to the most innovative solution? We all have affinity bias. That is, we're likely to have a more favorable instinct, response, or feeling about someone who is like us in some way. So you need to actively seek out diverse perspectives. If they don't currently exist within your organization, that's a gap that you'll need to fill in some other way. And you can fill that in some other way. So we split the basics of considering diverse perspectives into 4 different behaviors. So one is I invite a diverse group of people to meetings. So impromptu meetings and quick decisions happen all the time. And in those moments, we're likely to draw on people and assumptions that are familiar without looking further afield. So when you're making these quick impromptu decisions, have a think. Am I going to the same people all the time? Are there other people that I could be asking about this? Or am I just looking for someone to say yes? If you're just looking for someone to say yes, think about why that is. Next one is I seek out different viewpoints in decision making. So who else is at the meetings that you're going to, or the interviews that you're involved in, or the events that you attend? Does everyone look the same? Does everyone sound the same? People who are different make better decisions together. Too much similarity can lead to groupthink, which results in people not objecting or voicing their concerns. So a great way to seek out different viewpoints in decision making is to go onto LinkedIn and start following people that are in different industries than you, or look different than you, or have different life experiences, and start reading some of their content. And you'll be able to sort of absorb those different viewpoints and bring that into your decision making. So the next behavior is I object if someone is prevented from contributing their ideas. So when someone is interrupted or ignored, it can make them nervous to speak up in future, and perspectives are lost. Trust is damaged, and the likelihood of mistakes increases. So if you see somebody being prevented from contributing their ideas, or being spoken over, or being shot down, give them the space to speak. Say, excuse me, Harry was about to say something. So let's hear from what Harry has to say, because it might be really informative. So make sure that you're making that time to listen to object if someone's prevented from contributing their ideas. And then finally, I listen to other people's views. This sounds basic, but sometimes people ask you for your opinion, and then you could tell when they are not listening to what you have to say. If you're asking for people's opinions, let them speak. Listen carefully to what they have to say. Listen actively. Repeat back what they're saying. Make sure that you understand it and that you can incorporate their view into your next decision. So again, take a look at these 4 behaviors and think of some little instances where you can create a rule for yourself and put these behaviors into more regular practice. And again, that will help you sort of unlock diverse thinking in your own culture. Cool. And then the 4th strategy that I wanted to talk about was embracing failure. So research consistently shows that inclusive, innovative cultures are cultures where people feel psychologically safe. This safety has to be equally available to everyone. Unfortunately, we know this is not often the case. One example, in the UK, those that are from the global majority are more likely to be disciplined or judged harshly if they make a mistake at work. So we want to make sure that everyone, is able to innovate and do the best work that they can. So the first behavior that I want to talk about is responding positively when people take considered risks. So to drive innovation, you need people to take some risks without fear of blame. of course, without fear of blame, doesn't mean that they can do whatever they want and disregard the consequences. They just need to know that if things do go wrong, they'll have your support and there won't be finger pointing or scapegoating. So what can you do? Support ideas that are well thought through and have potential benefits. Support might mean giving the go-ahead, providing resources, or championing the idea to others. Make it clear that you support them to go ahead, and if it doesn't work out, you'll still support them to put it right. So remember, the aim here is to learn and hopefully make improvements. I encourage colleagues to share work in progress. So part of working with other people successfully is making sure that they feel able to talk with you about their work, even when it's not perfect. So regular open communication allows collaborative solutions and builds stronger working relationships. This isn't about making sure that your colleagues are going about things exactly the way that you would, but rather offering support and constructive feedback to help get the best outcome. 3, I change my behavior by learning from my mistakes. This is pretty obvious. If you are making mistakes, try to track it back to what behavior caused that mistake and change that behavior. Because there's no sense in just repeating the same things over and over. When you have sort of a wash-up meeting about a big project, try to pick out the things that you learned and the things that you can do differently going forward from that wash-up meeting. And then finally, I acknowledge the things that I don't know. So this is the core of any innovative and inclusive mindset. You can't possibly know everything about a potential solution or another person's experience. It's a real good idea to accept this and say it out loud. Some people are great at this. And when asked a question they don't know, they simply say, I don't know. But lots of us feel like we should know the answer. So we either make something up, or we guess, or we stumble through an answer. Again, can you think of some instances where you can create a little rule for yourself and put these 4 behaviors into more regular practice in your day-to-day? Try to sort of go back and write that down and make sure that you are putting these behaviors into practice so that you can create a more inclusive environment. And so those are the 4 strategies. Again, just to remind you about them, I'll go back really quickly. They are inclusive communication, so using inclusive and respectful language, speaking up and objecting to unkind and unfair communication you witness, ask open questions to understand other people's point of view, and then let other people speak without interrupting them. There is valuing feedback, which is responding with interest to views different from your own, giving specific feedback, asking for feedback, and actively seeking out opportunities to learn. Considering diverse perspectives also helps you create an inclusive environment. So you invite a diverse group of people to your meetings. Make sure that you're not making the same decisions with the same people, making a variety of decisions with the same people over and over. Seeking out different viewpoints in decision making. Again, same as I said before. Make sure that you're talking to more than one person or more than the same group of people when you're making big decisions. Object if someone is prevented from contributing their ideas, and listening to other people's views. And then finally, embracing failure, responding positively when people take considered risks, encourage colleagues to share work in progress, change my behavior by learning from my mistakes, and acknowledging the things I don't know. So further support, this is going a lot quicker than I thought it was going to go. So I hope you feel like you're getting your money's worth out of this. So further support from the Royal Academy of Engineering. Oh, I spelled engineering wrong. I'm acknowledging a mistake that I've just made. I will proofread going forward. That's embarrassing. So Culture Plus is actually the program that I work on. It's a platform designed for small and growing companies to build everyday habits that are essential to creating inclusive cultures. It's all based on the behaviors that I've sort of gone through today. And it helps smaller organizations adopt those behaviors and monitor them and then sort of diagnose the cultural challenges that they're having. If you want more information, you can scan that QR code and send me an email, and I'll walk you through the platform. We also have an upcoming conference, which is our Culture Plus conference for building world-class teams. This is on Friday, the 31st of January. If you are a leader in an engineering or tech startup, scale-up, or SME, we would encourage you to come. It's free. It's in London on Friday, the 31st of January. You can also scan the QR code here to secure your place. We also have the Inclusive Leadership Program. So the Inclusive Leadership Program is for larger organizations. It's a bespoke inclusive leadership training. What they do is they take 4 members of staff, 4 leaders out of the organization. So there's a senior engineer, a mid-career engineer, there's an HR person, and I think there's a future leader as well. And they train them all on inclusive leadership skills. They put them back into the company and task them with a project that they need to sort of implement back in their company to create an inclusive environment. And we are on our 2nd cohort right now. And then we're going to do a little break where we, review the learnings of it and come back. So this program isn't currently recruiting, but keep an eye out if you're in a larger organization and you want some inclusive leadership training. We also have the Graduate Engineering Engagement Program, or GEEP, as we affectionately call it. It's designed to help engineering students from underrepresented backgrounds successfully transition into full-time employment. So students receive support in a number of ways. There's online resources for participants and student liaison officers. There's skills and competency workshops. There's mentoring. There's working with industry partners. There's work placements and internships, and there's insight into engineering sessions. We also work with volunteers and company partners to support the students. So although this program is not currently recruiting, we will be in June and July. So if you're interested in becoming a volunteer or a company partner, please sign up for updates on their page by scanning the QR code. So these are some of the things that you'll get as a company. So you'll build a better pipeline. You'll sort of understand better team players and line managers. Tailored support in the community and on your D&I journey. Volunteers will sort of continue to do their professional development, and they'll sort of raise their own profile, and they'll be actively contributing to social change. We also have the Diversity Impact Program. So the Diversity Impact Program helps support universities to engage more students from underrepresented backgrounds in their engineering programs. So the way it works is that universities come to us with an idea for a program to achieve this goal, and then we fund that project. That way, we also get a lot of research on intervention programs that work, and we can publicize that research to other universities to hopefully follow suit. So to date, we've awarded nearly £2 million in funding. We've had, I think, 4 cohorts actually now, not 3. That's out of date. Sorry about that. And definitely more than 22 projects have been funded. But if you want more information about the Diversity Impact Program, you can also scan the QR code there and learn more about it. So that's it. I've really flown through this presentation. I thought it was going to be a lot longer, but I hope that you got something out of this. Please let me know if you have any questions. If you want to get in touch, you can scan the QR code and send me an email. And I really appreciate the time that we've had together.